Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NBA center Ryan Hollins.
Couple pump fakes, leans in, shot blocked by Ryan Hollins. Hollins sent that into the third row.
6 rebounds and 8 assists.
Hollins climbs the stairs.
Down the floor. Ryan Hollins, he is the high jumper.
That's what I want to see. Give me some gunpowder and throw the hammer down.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Ric Bucher.
Ric Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Hollins, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. I'm Ric Bucher. You can see me on FS1. You can read my stuff on Bleacher Report. You can follow me on Twitter at Ric Bucher. He is Ryan Hollins. You can follow him on Twitter at the Ryan Hollins. You can see him on ESPN. You can hear him on NBA radio. And at least for a little while longer, you can see and hear him on Clippers broadcasts. And we are recording this after the Game 3 shellacking of the Clippers by the Golden State Warriors. Went ahead by 31 points once again, although this time the Clippers didn't have a comeback. So you and I haven't had a chance to talk about the playoffs to this point. I'm just wondering, Ryan, when it comes to this series, with the Warriors going ahead the way they have, you could say in 3 straight games, the Clippers coming back in 1, what's your takeaway as far as where this series is going to go from here?
Well, you see a do-or-die scenario, honestly, in the next game for the Clippers, and their season is literally on the line. You fall down 3-1 to the world champs with a chance to close out at home in 5, you can kiss that goodbye. It's absolutely not happening. The Clippers just don't have enough firepower to win that way. Everything has to go right, as we saw in that 31-point comeback. It was literally a work of art. There wasn't a player possession that they could have missed to have still been able to come back in the game. So you're going to have to literally see the perfect game. And tonight, Rick, as we left, and the shellacking was the proper word. The Warriors made all the right plays, man, and they took pride on the defensive end of the floor. And I made a statement here in the postgame and said, man, dude, literally, they could have won that game with defense alone, even if the offense was horrible, or they could have won with just the offense alone. They were that good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, that's what, for me, everybody was talking about Kevin Durant and the number of shots and the offense. And I'm thinking they scored 131 points in Game 2. The offense, whoever's taking shots, I'm not worried about how many shots Kevin Durant is taking when they score 131 points. The fact that they gave up 135 to the Clippers, now that's a reason to have some questions. And they reasserted themselves again when it came to defense in Game 3. This is my thing. I never thought that the Clippers had a chance of winning this series. But in taking these games, just extending it a game, to me, is the difference. They extended a game this series. Houston takes them to 6 or 7 games. This is the formula that I see unfolding that prevents the Warriors from winning 3 championships in a row. So even though they reasserted themselves in Game 3, I'm still not convinced that this Warriors team is capable of doing this enough times to win another championship.
Well, Rick, you're right on par in the sense that this is hands down the most difficult run for the Warriors, as you brought out, seeing the Rockets in the second round. And that's, to me, if this is a perfect scenario, that's the NBA Finals where the Rockets play against Golden State. But we're going to see it in the second round. And obviously the East is no joke either. Whoever comes out the East, whether it be Philly, Milwaukee, Boston, or who am I leaving out? Toronto. All those teams are long, versatile, athletic, and they're going to be able to, in a sense, match up or somewhat keep par. So you're not going to just have this kind of like walk-over NBA Finals that we saw last year. And, even if I kind of think outside the box, Rick, and I want you to think about this, last year there was a lot of disappointment when it came to the NBA Finals. And, right after LeBron's run, it was just kind of like, here we go again. Like, who did he really beat? There are a lot of questions. And this year, I think there's more than enough entertainment. I think the NBA evened its way out. And there's just this big boo-hoo and crying when Boogie Cousins joined the Warriors that they weren't going to have any competition. And as you brought out, Rick, we're seeing one of the greatest years in the NBA in a very long time, and we'll see the fireworks that we get in the finals.
Yeah. And this is, for me, the DeMarcus Cousins experiment failed. No, that's not a reflection of DeMarcus Cousins. But this was my question. You mentioned how everybody was like, oh, this isn't unfair. This is so unfair. They have 5 All-Stars now. DeMarcus Cousins puts them over top. And I was thinking, we've never seen him in the playoffs. We've never seen him play this long in a season. And he's coming off of a major, major injury. And I had a chance to talk to him. In fact, I'm going to use the conversation that he and I had sometime as one of our podcasts, one of the Wednesday podcasts, simply because he prophesied this injury. He said, I'm not worried about the Achilles. I'm worried about something else. My maintenance has been about everything else, because once you get a major injury, and I think you probably, if you've not experienced it, you can attest to this. Once you have a major injury, it now puts stress on every other part of your body. And you're trying to avoid that second part to go. And then once you get the triad, once you get the triangle, an injury on one side, an injury on the other side, and then one more on either side, then you're pretty much toast. And he knew that this was a possibility. And I hate seeing it happen for him, but this is why putting all the eggs in the DeMarcus Cousins basket, I thought there was more reason to be concerned than to be elated if you were a Warriors fan.
No, you're well aware. And honestly, it went against their kind of the game plan of what they've done. Now, imagine if they use that mid-level exception on going out and getting another versatile wing, another, kind of 3-and-D guy with some value. That really significantly would have helped the Warriors, but you get it on Boogie Cousins and you bank on that spot and you don't have anything there. Unfortunately at the center spot, they pulled Andrew Bogut from Australia this year, and Andrew hadn't been picked up by any NBA team, and he was able to suffice with great minutes tonight. So they've kind of really shown that you can win in the NBA now when you have those type of shooting with, like a lack of center, just a rebounder, defender, a basic player at that position. So they could have made that happen regardless. But you know what? I just love that they took a chance on Boogie. I felt like he took a chance on himself. Yeah. And I'm really banged up, man, that this thing didn't work out for him. Just personally, man, he's a former teammate of mine. And I know he gets a lot of flack, man, but he's a good dude with a huge heart. No,
I like Boogie, and I think that he has been, if not misunderstood, certainly people have not taken into account the way his NBA career started and how much that may have had to do with the challenges that he's had or the reactions that he's had. All that said, when he and I got together and talked, we talked about the resurgence, this doc he did that ended up being about his comeback from the Achilles. And I said, you know what, what's amazing to me is that you're willing to do this because you don't know what the ending is. You don't know if it's going to be a good ending or a bad ending. And we said this we probably had this conversation about 2 weeks ago. And he said, I'm just confident in myself that it's going to turn out the way I want it to turn out. And I look at it now and, man, I'm sure that he will come back from this injury. I'm also sure that no one is going to give him the kind of contract that he was hoping that he was going to get. You mentioned Andrew Bogut, though, and I wonder, from a center's perspective, what do you make, not of how he's played, because I think we know what Bogut's capable of doing and the skill set that he has, but the way that the Clippers have played against him. What does it say to you about the way opponents are approaching Andrew Bogut being there versus DeMarcus Cousins or any other center?
Well, he fits a role. And, what's tough when you have a player like Cousins, you're not just going to ask this guy to be a defender, rebounder. You're going to throw the basketball to him and you're going to allow him to go out and make plays. The guy can flat out score the basketball. And that's not necessarily what the Warriors need. So a guy like Bogut really fits in, and he impacted the game defensively and essentially on the glass. And it's something that you hadn't seen from the Warriors, you almost want to say, since he had been there. JaVale McGee was pretty good, but, JaVale never got extended minutes for whatever reason, that it goes beyond me. But, Bogut really was a difference tonight, playing a bulk of minutes. And in some ways, you might want to say that you saw Warriors basketball tonight. The ball movement was back. The defense was good. It allowed their stars to be stars. And he honestly, he held down the paint, man. And his length was a factor on Lou Williams tonight.
Yeah. That's the thing, going back to the KD thing. Like, everybody's like, he needs to get more shots, or he's doing, okay, you might want him to take more shots rather than giving the ball up, especially after 9 turnovers. But their offense works best when they're not trying to feature somebody. The ball finds the open guy, and they're just reading the defense and reacting to it, and they put 5 guys on the floor who can score, and whoever's hot, whoever gets into a rhythm, whoever has the matchup, like, that's how it's determined. Not, oh, hey, KD only took 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 shots, whatever it might be. We need to force feed shots to him. That's not how their offense works. Yeah, maybe there were shots that he passed up, but the whole conversation about it just seemed really kind of, I don't know, simplistic and quite honestly wrong about how the Warriors play best and how KD fits in that.
So, let me throw this to you, Rick, and I don't know if this went over your head, but it just dawned on me from watching KD's presser after the game.
Yeah.
So, Kevin Durant's comments essentially that, broke the internet. I'm Kevin Durant.
Right.
I'm Kevin Durant. You know who he was talking to? Rick, he was talking to Charles Barkley. After the loss, Charles Barkley essentially ranted the entire show and said, if I was there, I would just walk to the paint. I would call for the ball.
Right.
You're not going to stop me. I'm this, I'm that. If he's 7 feet tall, these are the things that he's supposed to do. So KD, he was a little frustrated, and within that rant, if you heard him, and when he goes out and says, I'm Kevin Durant, that was absolutely for Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
And like you said, KD tried to explain that it's not the best thing for me to just break the offense, walk to the post, and grab the basketball. Let my coaches figure it out.
Right.
And essentially they did. And in game 1, he picked the Clippers apart by coming off of pin downs. Now in game 2, the Clippers adjusted and they top blocked all the pin downs. And the Warriors looked to run the same plays, and they took the Warriors out their offense. The Clippers did. So KD is absolutely right. And Steve Kerr made another adjustment to get Kevin Durant the ball. And he scored quicker. He shot the ball immediate, and he took no more than 1 dribble, possibly 2,
right,
on numerous occasions, and was effective.
Yeah, and that's even based on the questions afterward, I got the sense that people still didn't understand what he meant by that. I know who it was directed toward, but he was basically saying, I'm KD. I don't have to prove anything. Like, I don't have to go out in the game and score 35 for you to know, like, that I can do that. And even in the questions afterward, it seemed like people were still like, oh, so you proved you were KD. He's like, no, I am KD. I don't have to prove that I'm KD. There are times where I feel as if, I just wonder if people really watch the game.
So we'll hear this though, Rick, and I want to see how you feel about this. I feel like, regardless in which, there are people that love LeBron and they hate LeBron. And you're really not swaying them. No, LeBron could have 100 points in a triple-double, 100-point triple-double, and they still find a way to say something bad. You had people like that with Kobe Bryant. And Kevin Durant is a type of icon where you have those who love KD and you have those who hate KD. And the performance that Patrick Beverley had, all the people that had a problem with Kevin Durant, they came spewing out the woodwork. Oh, he's sensitive. Oh, he's soft. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that. Man, Kevin Durant just goes out and speaks his mind, and you have access to that dude that you wouldn't have before. Like, am I wrong, Rick?
No, I agree. And I've told him this directly. I said, you know what? I like this KD more because I always thought that you had these thoughts. but you never said them in Oklahoma City. You always kept everything under the QT. And he said, yeah, it was because Oklahoma City is like San Antonio, and he goes, that's where I came into the league. That's why I thought you did it. And he's just feeling his independence now. And whether you agree with him or you don't agree with him, I like that he speaks his mind. And by the way, for anybody out there who is thinking, does he really want to go to New York, and because he's going to have to carry that franchise? The KD that you hear tells you how much he believes, dude, I can play anywhere. I can play anywhere. I can lead any franchise. I can be the cornerstone. You put some things around me, I can get it done. Whether you agree with it or not, that's another thing. But the fact is, there is no doubt in my mind that KD says, I can go anywhere and ball.
Well, let me ask you this, Rick, because you got a real intimate relationship with KD. And I remember he took a lot of flack for essentially the LeBron toxic comments.
Right.
And he was double and triple and quadruple right, because it was almost like he foretold it. Mm-hmm. And that died down. And later on, you came out with it's pretty much a done deal KD to New York comments, and those started to go. How's his relationship with you? Is he just kind of like, hey, man, those are my truths, I said it? Or has he been, hey, Rick, why would you put that out there? What's that relationship like?
He hasn't said anything negative to me since I made the New York comments. I made it clear that he had not told me that. Rich Kleiman, his business manager, had not told me that. I'm hearing that from a lot of other places. I went to a documentary that he produced called Cue Ball, which I highly recommend to anybody out there. It is a documentary done on ballers who are in San Quentin, and they got a chance to play against the Golden State Warriors staff in a game in San Quentin. And one of the guys who was getting out of San Quentin ended up getting a G League tryout as a result. Didn't make it, but that's part of the theme of the story. But it was really about the guys in San Quentin following the Warriors. When you see them watching games and you see their love for the game and how it's one of those lifelines for them inside and keeping their spirits up, and the camaraderie and the community that they have around playing ball together. It was a really powerful thing. And so I highly recommend that.
Wow.
Anyway, so I saw him in the locker room after game 1. And again, I wanted to be there in part because I hadn't seen him since I was on FS1 talking about him going to New York. And so I wanted him to have the opportunity, like if he had something to say, that he'd have the opportunity to say it. And so I went up to him and I just said, hey, I saw the documentary Cue Ball, gave him a thumbs up. And he kind of nodded, and he was getting dressed at the time. And it's always a little difficult during playoff time or in the locker room. The conversations I've had with him have not been in the locker room. They've been outside or in the hallway or somewhere we can kind of talk one-on-one. When you're in the locker room, there's like 50 reporters in there, and as soon as you start to have a conversation, everybody's kind of dipping into it. So I don't know where we are. And quite honestly, I respect him, but I just told what I was asked the question. I think it started with Colin Cowherd asking me, saying, my friend Bill Simmons, who's very close to Rich Kleiman, the business manager, Bill Simmons keeps telling me this is a done deal. He's going to New York. What have you heard? I said, that's what I've heard. It's a done deal. I haven't anybody who's told me otherwise. And so if KD's got an issue with that, and me making it clear I didn't get it from KD, I didn't get it from his business manager, well, then we can take that up. But I'm just telling. I just told what I had been told, and what if you're asking me, I believe that's what's going to happen, but I don't think in any way I was talking out of school. Now, Does it create issues for KD? I don't know. I was actually surprised. I don't know, Ryan. I was kind of surprised by the reaction that I said it. Maybe because it was a little bit like him saying toxic and me saying it's done. It's like a word that everybody kind of jumps on.
Well, when you said it's done, like, no, that did jump. Like, I've always given it 80-20 that because I just believe that when they win the championship, it's really going to be hard to go.
Yeah.
And I gotta be feeling like Kyrie Irving and Jimmy or some of those guys are in. And I know the relationship that he has with Kyrie, that they're like boys.
Yep.
Like they're real boys. So that those two alone, reshape New York basketball forever. Something that we'll never forget. That goes down in basketball history before these guys even wear the jersey, if that ends up happening. So I'm super interested to see how that goes. So no, Rick, you're not out of the box for saying that, but to say it was done, because I've heard it before too. But you kind of gave it that stamp.
Yeah. Well, and look, and I was without question, but that's the way I've heard it. I mean, I can't state it any other way. Could he change his mind? And I've said that too. This is one of the struggles, is that when you are on as many platforms as you and I are on, you're not going to say everything in every situation. I have said at times through the course of this, could winning a championship change his mind? Sure. Could he break with Rich Kleiman and the people that are advising him now and suddenly decide that New York is a bad idea for all the other things that he wants to get done? Sure, that can happen. But I'm not getting any indication of that, or that there's any wavering at this point. So, there's two things I look at. One, his going to the Warriors happened long before, or the move toward going to the Warriors, that was in place long before those guys went out the Hamptons. That was just that was the grace note. That train had started the summer before, when Draymond freaking texted him. And then there were conversations going on throughout the year that led to that. And the other part is this idea that if they win 3 in a row, well, he's got to stick around for 4.
Hey, Rick, you just said something that kind of dawned on me. If the Warriors haven't committed to Draymond, and I don't believe they have, I really know, or I feel in my heart of hearts, he's the odd man out, and he could end up being a Laker.
Yeah.
Draymond had been the recruiter of Boogie, instrumental in KD. Mm-hmm. Could he be telling, hey guys, I'm off this. They're not committed to me. I'm not doing your dirty work anymore. You guys don't, you guys call LeBron the general manager. Well, hey, I'm the general manager of this squad because I've built stuff and I've humbled myself to bring in other stars and guys and sacrifice my shots so we could get Durant, so we could get Boogie Cousins, so we can keep this thing going. And maybe he is saying, you know what, KD, I'm not pushing. These people have lost my respect. I'm not pushing the same way. And kind of open up the door and just said, hey, bro, I'm not going to be mad if you go.
It's possible. I mean, that's certainly a possibility. I just believe that when he left B.J. Armstrong and the Wasserman Media Group and he hired Rich Paul and the Clutch Agency, that was getting ready for a battle. That was. If I'm the Warriors, I'm gonna look at that going, uh-oh. Okay,
well,
this is not going to be an easy. This is not going to be an easy negotiation.
How about we throw this out? Anthony Davis leaves. They both leave, and they go over to Rich, and they leave Wasserman. And the word amongst players is that Wasserman's got, they've got these buddy deals with these organizations, and they will choose an organization over a player all day. And they're not willing to ruffle feathers. And as a player, you don't feel like they have your best interest in hand. And they want to go about things, and you can say the right way because, there's relationships that are there, but they're not willing to demand more money or demand movement or demand a certain play that for a player that a player wants at the cost of their relationship. And clearly Rich Paul is.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think certainly Rich is. When I can't speak for all of Wasserman Media Group, for BJ's never been afraid to challenge teams because he's been on the other side of the equation, and he's a player who felt like at times he was mistreated or teams got over on him. So he's always taken the approach that I'm not doing any favors for any teams because they didn't do favors for me when I was a player. I'm gonna work in the best interest. I can't speak for all of their agents, but with BJ in particular, I know that to be the case.
And I'll throw this out real quick too with Draymond. It's funny about him recruiting. One of the summers before I hung it up, I was posting a lot of videos of me, working out and doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, Draymond comments on one of the photos, I'm shooting some threes, and he goes, "Dang, bro, I didn't know you had that." And it's funny, like, it didn't hit me. I'm thinking back, like, he might have been doing a level of recruiting saying, "Oh, how about the Warriors?" Or if I see anything, I'm kind of like laying a seed. So that's funny. And the Warriors were a team that reached out. I could have gone to Golden State, but they offered me, it was a death row deal, bro, a Suge Knight deal. And they said, if you come along, we own your rights and we're not going to guarantee you, but you're going to be locked in with us.
Oof.
And if you don't make the team, you go play for our D League. And we got your rights, essentially.
What year was this?
Bro, this is gonna, in life you look back and just say things weren't meant to be.
Yeah.
This is the year they had all those injuries. Varejao signs back, and then Varejao ends up getting hurt or leaving.
Yeah.
And they called somebody up. I forget who it was.
Hilton Armstrong.
It was like, yeah. And I want to say almost like McGee's first year.
Yeah.
So I absolutely would have been on the squad. But I didn't think, and I think whatever Zaza was on his way, whatever happened, but I didn't see them making any moves at the center spot. I thought they were kind of committed no matter how good or bad they were.
Yeah.
And I just felt like even though I may have been better than a guy, I wouldn't have got a fair shot. And the next thing you know, all these fair shots are thrown out. So, hey.
Tough business.
No, it is what it is, man. But I just saw that deal, and I could, within good faith, put myself in that position, man.
Yeah. So we got to touch on a couple of the other series real quick. Brooklyn, Philadelphia. Sixers go up 2-1 in that series. Joel Embiid does not play in Game 3. I'm still of the mind that Brooklyn is a tough matchup for them, that they showed their playoff inexperience in Game 3 by just, it sounds crazy, being the lower seed and a team that snuck in, but I felt like they didn't take the Sixers seriously in Game 3. And I still look at the matchups that they have, and I still favor them overall. They couldn't hit a three. They didn't run Tobias off the line. I think he surprised them. JJ Redick had a great game. But when I look at the matchups, if Brooklyn plays with energy, I like them at the very least making this a long series.
Well, Brooklyn doesn't have the experience, and I don't think it will be a long series. And, oddly enough, in a sense, when the big fella's not on the floor, you open up the paint for Ben Simmons because nobody now is in there. Yep. And now Ben's inability to shoot isn't a deterrent because the floor is spread and he's got a lot of driving angles. And on First Take, I don't know if you were able to catch this, but I said Ben Simmons is the biggest X factor in the entire Eastern Conference. Why is that? Because he's got the type of talent that essentially can push Philadelphia over the edge because of his abilities. And he's a guy where he makes you that much better. he makes you that much better when he's scoring the basketball because of his ability to pass. And when he's doing that, everybody's better. When you got a guy who can pass and he's scoring just enough, everybody ends up being better. And that's what you saw tonight out of Ben Simmons. And in game one, how many points did he have? He had 9 points. He was a non-factor. So, the proof is in the pudding, Rick. I don't know how you feel about that, but honestly, if he plays at a high level, bro, they could come out the East. And that's the truth.
I can't see that. My biggest problem with them is
if Ben Simmons averages 20 points a game, they come out the East with their weapons.
Okay, well, I don't see him averaging 20. And here's the problem that I have. Their go-to guy is, I assume, Jimmy Butler?
Yes. Right now, Jimmy is their closer. But here's the reality. I don't want Jimmy Butler to be closing games. I want him spotting up.
I'm with you.
In a perfect scenario, but right now, that's their best bet with the ball in Jimmy's hands because it takes away from Ben.
See, but that's the problem. That's where I don't think the pieces fit. And that's why I see in a lot of need situations at the end of games, they run something, it ends up with JJ taking the shot, which I think they're comfortable with, but it's basically off of some action with Ben. And I don't think that's the perfect scenario when you're talking about trying to, come out of the East. I can't see him getting past the second round, almost regardless of who they face. But we can get to that. There was one last series that I wanted to touch upon.
So you're telling me if Ben Simmons averaged 20 points a game, they don't come out.
When did you become a Ben Simmons fan?
I'm not. I'm just speaking the facts because he's a playmaker. In fact, Rick, what really tickles me is last year, the internet attempted to crucify me because I said Philadelphia won't make it out the second round because Ben Simmons can't shoot.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. And now there's this trending thing that Ben Simmons can't shoot. So I was
yeah, but if you have eyes, you know that.
No, everybody was on this Philadelphia bandwagon. And when I said it, everybody tried to crucify me for it. And what's Holland saying? Holland has this problem with Ben Simmons, this and that. Right. And it was true. But it's funny. Nobody comes around and goes, oh, Ryan, you were right. You absolutely called this. You were the first. You called this last year. And it's funny now that you know what, Rick, honestly, straight up, I tell you what players say in the locker room. And you saw Jared Dudley came out and said it.
Right.
Because we read scouting reports and we actually had to play the darn game.
Right.
And a lot of common folk don't like what I have to say. They don't get it and they don't understand it and they don't like it. But I'm telling you what's really happening. I just have how do I put it, Rick? How do we make this PG? I'll just say I've got the state of mind to speak my mind, and people don't like it. But
here's the thing. So
a lot of people don't.
Ben Simmons, let's say Ben Simmons responded. It's more than just Joel Embiid was missing in game 3, but Ben Simmons felt like he was being challenged and he answered it. And then afterward he said, that's done. My thing with Jared Dudley, I don't have the energy for it. Here's my real question. I need to see where Ben Simmons goes from here. I need to see, I don't want it to be over. I want Ben Simmons to say, oh, you think I'm an average player unless I'm in transition? Let me show you how I can dominate a game. I am not convinced that Ben Simmons, and you've said it, and I just happen to agree with it, he doesn't have enough dog in him. Like, he's not coming after you every game and utilizing what he has as a player. And as a guy who's he averaged 17 points a game during the regular season, do I expect that he's going to average more in the postseason? Actually, I don't. I don't see him doing that. There are guys whose game elevates, and a rare guy who elevates in the postseason. He's not one of them. Last year in the playoffs, he averaged the exact same thing that he did during the regular season. I would imagine that that's going to end up being the same thing this year.
Well, Ben is not obsessive about being good. And Ben ultimately has God-given talents of passing, of size, of strength. and he came back the second year, a little more experienced, but essentially the exact same player.
Yep.
And that's the real disappointment and his reluctancy to shoot. And I've been very vocal about that. But I still agree that if he finds a way to score the basketball, they come out the East. And that's a big if. That's a big win. That's a big maybe, Rick. But if he does, they come out because their talent is unreal. And a guy like that with his passing ability, he just makes everybody better. It was like essentially, I'll compare him, lightheartedly to Rondo when we were in Boston. Rondo made everybody better because he would score or he would do just enough to keep you honest. And then everybody would get their shots and we'd all be happy. And Ben Simmons has that type of talent and passing ability. Now, is the ball going to be in his hands? Is he going to be effective enough to move on? I don't know.
All right, last series that I wanted to touch upon, San Antonio, Denver. Spurs have taken a 2-1 lead in that, and you can tell they are nervous in the Mile High City. Do they have reason to be?
Yeah, because San Antonio should have been up 3-0. You got a pretty crazy performance out of Murray, but I mean, we all called this, and they were mad at me when I said I don't believe it in a bit in the Denver Nuggets, man. It's just the one thing, man. And I was blessed to have playoff experience, and I see how tight it is, man. I see the window for success. I see how hard it is to win, and I see how you have to win. And you can see from a team's personnel and the way they play and the way you win in the NBA right now, what's going to go out and happen.
What do you mean in terms of Denver?
Yeah, they don't fit. They don't have the personnel or experience or playing style. So yeah, I'm just in general, when I make my calls on who will and who won't, there are reasons behind it, bro.
Yeah, it's not a direct parallel, but I see similarities between Denver and Philadelphia. Not direct, but in that I'm not convinced that the pieces are perfectly suited, and especially not suited for playoff basketball. And for the number one thing that you have brought up, which is you need to have that freak. Your go-to guy has to be that freak athlete. And I suppose you're going to say, well, Ben Simmons is that freak athlete. And if he makes the most of what he has, then that's the difference. And I get that logic, but I'm not buying that against the best teams in the league, that a guy who can't score beyond the free throw line is going to be able to consistently score that way. And if he is in there and attempting to score, then that's limiting what Joel Embiid can do. And then Jimmy Butler is basically just a spot up guy, along with JJ Redick. And then let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Like, there are too many holes there in my mind, especially when they go to the bench. So that's where there's way too many. Could Ben Simmons, if he was otherworldly, solve a lot of those problems?
What's wrong with Tobias Harris?
I can see that logic.
What's wrong with
Tobias Harris? I'm sorry. But again, Tobias Harris was able to do what he did in the game largely because Joel Embiid's not there and he's getting a ton of looks. And Ben Simmons is able to penetrate and get into the paint, and now the ball's swinging out, and Tobias is getting great looks, or he's getting great looks off the break. And he was shooting it from three as well as I've ever seen him shoot it. I mean, he was on one. I just don't know that they can make, for all of their talent, I don't know that they can make all of that talent mesh, that every guy can be anywhere near his best when the other guys are on the floor. If Joel Embiid is on the floor, there's no way Tobias Harris can have a game like that.
You got to understand, Tobias is a guy who plays off the basketball, and he makes that team dangerous defensively. And if your fifth best guy is guarding Tobias Harris, that's a problem for your lineup. Like, so Rick, don't compare them to the Nuggets. Like, that's not even the same. The Nuggets just played hard as heck, and they were well coached. They don't have really good personnel at all, man.
I mean, the comparison in this is that I think both of them are better regular season teams than they are playoff teams. Like, you look at a team like the Houston Rockets, and there's a lot of things there where you'd say, okay, well, they kind of finished where they should have finished, but they are greatly suited to be a playoff team. Like, they can beat a lot of people in the playoffs because of how their game works. That may not always work during the regular season, but in the playoffs it works really well.
Yeah, man. And if if you're a team that should be going on a long playoff run, I mean, do you want to burn yourself out during the regular season? No. So you didn't see a couple teams just trying to lose their mind in the regular season, like the Warriors. Like, all right, let's just get there. That's like kind of the understanding. You kind of make your way through 82 games. And if you're the Nuggets, man, you're trying to prove yourself. You're a couple of those teams, and you're trying to prove it. All
right. That does it. I think we've covered everything for the time being when it comes to the playoffs. That does it for this episode of Hollins and Bucher, subsidiary Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. By the way, Gary Owen is also on the United WeCast Network, just appeared number 7 in the comedy section of the iTunes rankings. Congratulations to Gary, and congratulations to United WeCast. In our next podcast next week, Will Blackman is going to be on vacation, so I have a couple of special guests lined up, perhaps even one that I just recently did a long feature piece on, who is not playing currently for the Pistons, but hopefully we'll get a chance to play that for you. If not, I'll have one or two other guests up my sleeve, but that will be at the start of next week. In the meantime, if you enjoy the show, or even if you don't, please rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a comment or not, but if you rate us in stars and you screenshot that and send it to @BucherFriends, you'll be eligible to win some prizes. Also, for those who were the winners of our NCAA bracket, congratulations. We'll put your names out in the next podcast, but know this, your winnings are on their way. As always, thanks for listening.